If there's something that I've learned during my time jumping into various areas of the video game media throughout the years, it's that gamers sure do love their melodrama. Whether it be Jim Sterling's 7 out of 10 review for Zelda Breath of the Wild, Destiny 1's lacking content, or a few Apex Legends developers calling their players freeloaders and asshats, people will throw around hyperbole like it's going out of style. The last one particularly is just amazingly melodramatic. You committed the ultimate cardinal sin. You got personal. You, as a team of professionals trying to make money, got personal. You got personal and decided to insult your player base, calling us asshats and freeloaders. Not a wise move. We won't forget this. You set a new tone for the kind of interaction we'll be having with you. It's a cold one. One where there aren't any illusions about the reality of the situation. Previous notions of family are dead. We are mere consumers to you, and that is obvious. You have chosen to bring in a new era of hostility and bitterness. Well done. Great PR move. Still, there is a tiny bit of reality showing in that post as well. People very often like to declare that they will never buy another game from X publisher or developer. I mean, I've done that. After seeing the original ending of Mass Effect 3, I actually traded in all of my BioWare games and declared to no one in particular that I would never buy another BioWare game ever again. Fast forward to today, and I have purchased Dragon Age Inquisition, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Anthem. Granted, Dragon Age was the only one that I bought at full price, whereas I waited for sales on the other two, but the point still stands that I didn't really hold myself to that sweeping declaration that I made back in 2012. Heck, I even rebought the original Mass Effect trilogy on PC, and I've put a decent amount of time into the last two games in particular. Time eventually showed me that I was perhaps overreacting a bit when I decided to clean out my entire BioWare collection over the last 10 minutes of a game. Which brings me to Anthem. Funny enough, I started writing this video before Jim Sterling posted his post-mortem of Anthem, so I feel like this conversation is even more relevant than it was before. That's the one bone I have to pick with YouTubers in general, not just Jim, and to be clear, I enjoy Jim's content and didn't particularly disagree with his viewpoints in the video, minus the assertion that the game is actually dead. I find these dead game declarations to be spotty at best, as some games that have been declared dead by high-profile YouTubers are still alive and well today. Granted, they do get it right sometimes, but they are by no means consistent. I think a lot of this has to do with people using Twitch and YouTube as a measuring stick for the game's success, which is understandable but is only a correlation at the end of the day. Correlation does not equal causation. Just to name two examples, Recon Wildlands fell off of the streamer circuit pretty quick, but maintained a big enough audience for Ubisoft to greenlight a sequel. Star Wars The Old Republic was very similarly absent from Twitch as well, and considering that my Returning to the Old Republic video is now the highest viewed video on my channel, it seems a lot of people are still interested in that game. Another video that garnered more attention than I thought it would was my Return to Anthem video before my name change. While there is a lot of justified negativity towards the game right now, it's clear from view counts on Anthem videos across YouTube and the engagement on subreddits and Discord servers that there is still some interest in the game. A lot of interest? No, and that is to be expected. For the sake of fairness, I will also show Anthem's Twitch stats. Sweet Jesus. Let's go ahead and rip off the band-aid, as I'm sure that I'm giving some sort of impression now that I'm about to wholeheartedly defend Anthem in every aspect. Not the case. I'm going to take the next minute or so to vent my issues with this game. Here we go. Anthem in its current state is an unacceptable product to be coming from a AAA studio, especially one with the pedigree of BioWare. The game is poorly optimized, I still get occasional glitches, the game is difficult to play by yourself, joining up with randoms tends to be a mess as they often aren't sure of the objectives and end up screwing up your run, and that's if they stay at all. The game hardly provides any additional cosmetics, and most of them are tied into this terrible rotating store that preys upon a player's fear of missing out in order to get them to spend real money, or just grind out a lot of in-game currency. Even more egregious, they've taken themed armors from the current Season of Skulls update and put them behind this paywall as well. The absolute worst thing by a long shot, though, is the utterly uninspired and dull storytelling. I would be way more forgiving of all these other things mentioned if the storytelling was on point. Gameplay has always been hit or miss with BioWare, but storytelling was always a strength. This issue is what slides Anthem from really rough to unacceptable in my mind. At the very least, BioWare should be able to do better than this story. Also, side note, can we stop using the phrase, "we got this"? It breaks immersion when dealing with universes that aren't our own, and it's also just really lazy writing. Alright, rant over, I'm better now, but for some reason I have this strange urge to make a thumbnail with a white background and red lettering. That'll apply for a job at Inside Gaming. Huh. So hopefully I've proven to you that I'm not looking at Anthem with any sort of overt bias. Yes, I enjoy BioWare games, but I am capable of being critical of one of my favorite game developers in the same way that I would be critical of a developer that I don't like. With all that said, I think that Anthem will be fine. Not massively successful, not the Bob Dylan of gaming as BioWare hoped somewhat arrogantly that it would be, but fine. My primary reasoning for this actually revolves around something that others in the media are calling signs that the game is dying or dead. Last month, BioWare's head of live services posted on the EA forums stating that the team was formally abandoning the act structure that they had put in place prior to the game's launch. BioWare will now be releasing seasonal updates, while the bulk of the development team will now be working on fixing Anthem's core infrastructure. Basically, looking at this blog post, the language being used here seems to imply that this is somewhat of an overhaul of the base game. First off, I think anyone who plays this game on a somewhat consistent basis will agree that this game needs a lot of patchwork done even at the base level. While there aren't as many bugs as there were back at launch, the game still isn't stable enough to be called reliable. There are some conflicting reports as to who actually forced this, but BioWare has been tethered to DICE's Frostbite engine for a little over half a decade at this point. Frostbite is an engine that was developed specifically for DICE's specialty, large-scale first-person shooters with third-person vehicle combat at points. In that realm, the Frostbite engine is just fine. The Battlefield games and Star Wars Battlefront games look amazing and run great, minus Battlefield 4 at launch. Frostbite was built for these types of games and not much else. Thus, when BioWare, an RPG developer, either decided to or was forced to switch completely over to the Frostbite engine shortly before the beginning of this console generation, they had a lot of work to do to just get their tools in working order. It is on record between the terrible launches of Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem that the Frostbite engine is the primary reason why the games are so unstable. This engine simply was not intended to be used this way, and with EA focusing their development support for Frostbite on their sports franchises, BioWare was mostly left to figure it out on their own. Put this together with bad management from BioWare's leadership, and we have a really rough game that doesn't appear to have a clear vision of what it wants to be. That's why I'm happy that they're taking the time to step back and work on the core of Anthem instead of piling on more content. The way I see this, Anthem is a road that was paved without an intended destination. What BioWare is doing right now is effectively stopping the road crew and deciding where this road is going instead of putting down more road. If they're going to be overhauling parts of this game, then the planned DLC may not even fit into this new direction, so developing it would be a waste of time. Not to mention working on content and an overhaul at the same time is just generally a bad idea, as any miscommunication between the team working on the overhaul and the team making the new content could and would most likely lead to even more game-breaking bugs. Amidst a bunch of bad decisions made by the company recently, I don't think the decision to prioritize fixing the game over putting out more content is one of them. I have a pretty fresh example to prove my point too, Fallout 76. Without even getting into the utter absurdity that is that $100 subscription that Bethesda is trying to sell, another story has surfaced recently about the perks included in said subscription not working. Bethesda's attempt to add more content to a game that was still somewhat broken and buggy resulted in the deletion of parts of players' inventories and private servers that weren't so private. This is what happens when content is prioritized over the core game. Is that kind of situation something that you really want for Anthem? I know I don't want that, and I'm willing to wait until BioWare sorts itself to take some pressure off the development teams so that they can finally get some rest while they work on the game in the background. While BioWare as a company is responsible for Anthem's messy state, I have zero interest in pretending that developers aren't people and demanding that they crunch until they keel over. There are plenty of other games to keep us busy while BioWare works to fix this game. Destiny 2 and Warframe are both free to play and will definitely keep you busy for a few months if that's the type of game that you really want to play. I will, however, only be spending a small amount of time with this game moving forward, as the fun factor does drop off pretty quick after you finish the campaign and run the Cataclysm countless times. I expect that we'll be hearing very little of this game for the rest of the year, and that we'll probably hear an update of some sort from BioWare sometime early next year, and that's okay. But Dave, you might ask, what about what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda? BioWare abandoned that game and even closed the Montreal studio. Won't they just do the same to Anthem? I've always found this black and white logic to be really flimsy and usually a bit sensational. I'm reminded of the same people declaring Stadia, a multi-billion-dollar invested project from Google, a failure because Google has abandoned a bunch of smaller and cheaper projects in the past. People tend to point out an issue that could be valid without examining the context. With this particular example, Mass Effect Andromeda couldn't continue development on the single-player portion because their studio was merged into EA Motive with no layoffs according to Forbes. The multiplayer, however, was actually supported by BioWare for over a year after launch, with the latest patch notes I'm seeing coming from November 7th, 2018, and 7-day, oddly enough. This amount of support mirrors the same amount of support given to Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, so I failed to see an issue here. The studio that was responsible for the single player was no longer part of BioWare, and the rest of BioWare was focused on trying to turn Anthem into an actual video game and not just a bunch of mismanaged prototypes. Things are much different now. There's an established team working on Anthem that, as of this video's posting, has not been shuttered or merged with another team. Anthem is still being worked on, and it seems like there's a group of people within BioWare that really want this game to be fixed. Well, at least according to Jason Schreier's article. So where does this leave us? Yes, Anthem is a mess in its current state, and it's going to take some time to put itself together. At the end of the day, I think BioWare will be able to pull it together. The whole 10-year plan, not entirely sure about that at this point, but for the foreseeable future, I think Anthem will be fine. Not super successful, but fine. If you like this video, then please give it a like and let me know what you think in the comments. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this from me. Until then, happy gaming, and I will see you next time. Later.